Welcome to the Lily Pod, Catapult Greater Pittsburgh's podcast where we discuss all things people, community, and politics. Today we are meeting with our guest, Ebony Lunsford Evans. Super excited to have Ebony here. One of my favorite farmers. She is a farmer, an urban grower, urban farmer who has transitioned from being an educator to growing fresh food for the residents of our communities, and not just growing, but educating. So you didn't stray too far from education. I'm excited to be here talking to Ebony about urban growing and urban farming. I think it is so relevant for the times, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But Ebony, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
I'm so happy to be here. I'm just still taking it all in. It's just such a nice
It's a great space. So, Ebony, I'm so excited that you're joining us. I think this is a very timely conversation. I do want to know all about you, and we did a ton of research and actually found out things that I didn't know about you. So I'm super excited to jump in. But I've been really thinking about the importance of urban farming and urban growing, especially where we are politically in this country. It's been one of the things that I have been hyper probably nervous about because as someone who has experienced high levels of food insecurity, I know how important having local fresh food is. And I'm a little concerned about farmers. I'm going to ask you a little bit about what are your thoughts and how are you feeling? Is there anything in particular that you think you are going to need support with as far as farming? I've been doing a lot of research about federal farm subsidies and how the cost of food and the food supply could potentially be impacted by decisions that are being made in the federal government. How do you think those decisions are going to impact us locally here in Pittsburgh?
So thank you for that question. I think that was a lot that you kind of like threw at me in my mind is, answering them in different, compartments as I, just think about what you're saying. Like, first of all, as I think about being a farmer, this was very organic coming into this. I had no idea, what I was being pulled into. Like, this came into my life way back in like 2016, 2017, when I started more so getting a little bit serious about just growing food. I had no idea what I was preparing for at all. It was just something that I was doing in the backyard with my kids. And once it became like this really spiritual journey for me, and really it's a super deep story. But once I realized that I was on a spiritual journey into this, I began to dig a lot deeper. And what I found was so devastating to me that I just desperately wanted to help everybody around me. I just wanted to show people how to do what I was doing. Now, this was way before the pandemic. I had no idea what was coming at all. But once the pandemic hit, then I saw the importance of what I was doing. But then as I looked around my community and I looked at people who looked like me, and they had no idea or had no interest really in what I was doing, I realized that there was an educational component that was missing. And that's when I realized that I was being called into something, but I was also being able to carry my passion into it too, which is educating. And so I was trying to figure out, just marrying the two. And I realized that I needed to make sure that people who looked like me understood that having access to fresh food or just growing food is our birthright.
Absolutely.
That is our birthright. We have every right to do it, to learn it, and no one taught our ancestors how to do it. There was no such thing as an institution. There was no, so our relationship is with the land. And so once I began to teach myself, I quickly realized that it was important to transfer those skills into my community. And then things started taking off. Now, fast forward to today, as I see what's going on with the federal government, everything that's going on with farming and farmers. Now I'm understanding a little more why I was called into
Absolutely.
this situation. And so I still feel the need to desperately continue to educate my community on how to do this and how we can do this so that we don't get caught up in so much fear, because that is what's happening. I found myself getting caught up into the fear of the food, the cost of food, going everything. And so what I have been trying to do is continue to educate myself so I can transfer these skills into my community and stay focused to hopefully know that we'll be okay if we truly get into this. I'm entering into a territory that I didn't even dream of. I didn't even know that I would be here. But as I am here, I am trying to stay focused enough to know that, we can do this, because we got a
Absolutely.
lot ahead of us. We have no idea what our
I
tomorrow
agree.
is. And so I'm concerned, but I'm more focused on getting these skills out here and making sure that we have some security.
Yeah, I think that's super important. So I want to back up a little bit because you spoke a little bit about being an educator, but that's a huge transition going from being an educator in Pittsburgh Public Schools, which, by the way, kudos, because I think teachers are amazing. But you went from educating inside Pittsburgh Public Schools to taking your skills as an educator to the farm and to the community. I remember seeing posts that you were making that had all these beautiful babies, all these young people in your backyard. How did that start? How did the kids find you? Because that's one thing I know. The kids will find you first, right? The kids' interest in things sort of brings the adults in. So how did the babies end up in your backyard?
So I'm glad you brought that up. So, so working in Pittsburgh Public Schools, I did that for 11 years. And I mean, I really had some challenges working in the district, to be honest. A lot of challenges that I really haven't spoken about. And I don't know if I really need to speak about, but I was really finding a hard time fitting in a district, to be honest. I was in a district around the time where what's about to happen now with a lot of schools closing was happening then. And I found myself with no seniority, no real home. I was bounced around a lot. I was in full-time substitute positions because there were no positions for me. So I was in this weird space with the board, right? And so when I decided to leave, it was hard for me. It was hard, but I was also a mom. I had 2 young children, and I ironically worked in the neighborhood that I lived in. And that was, not really anything that I didn't live around any of my teachers. And sometimes when I would find myself like out in the front of my house or just walking down the street, I would see students and they would just like be starstruck. And I needed a little bit of privacy. I needed to be able to live in my house. And so what I did was I started hiding in my backyard with my kids. And so I have a little fenced in backyard. It's in a little alleyway. And I figured that would be my way of hiding from the community so I could just be a mom and just be regular in the back with my kids. Well, my son had a hoop back then, and the hoop hung in a little alley. And I just think the bounce of his ball
Drew the
kids,
baby. Yes,
the kids
yes.
just started coming. I just started seeing them come. And when they came around, I just let them play on my son's hoop. I became a safe space for them, at least tried to be, because these kids would just come around and they didn't go away. I found them like outside of my house for hours and hours. And then I would just start like giving them water, giving them a piece of fruit, just something. And then I had started growing little stuff in my yard with my kids, and I would be like watering them. And I think the little girls, they started seeing me water, and they would be like, "Oh, can I water your plants?
Aw.
Can I?" And I would be like, I didn't really want to let them pass my fence. No, I didn't really want to let them in my yard. I didn't know them. I was trying to protect them and us, at the same time. But it doesn't take much for kids to win. And and just checking myself as a safe person, because these were little kids. I mean, the youngest one, I think at the time, was like 5.
Aw.
And so I started letting them in my yard. and started letting them water the plants. And then they started asking questions. And then the educator in me loved the questions. So I would started answering them and then showing them more and showing them more. And before I knew it, my backyard turned into an outside classroom because I began to bring out things, materials, tables, art supplies, anything that could keep them, focused and happy. And so then the boys start seeing me let the girls do it. And they'd be like, oh, we want to come in. We want to water the plants. And I would be like, okay, girls, go out on the hoop. And I would let the boys in. And the educator in me just started thinking of a way to keep them separate, right? Because I thought that was the safest thing, keep the girls away from the boys. But then that became hard because I only got this little yard. And now, and so what I began to do as an educator, like I said, was turn my backyard into an outside classroom where I had tables in different parts of my yard to where they could go to different stations. So if the girls are at the table doing artwork, the boys could be over there researching on, I had 2 laptops at the time or whatever we were growing, seeing whatever issues could come up, and we were like writing down how to tackle those issues. And so one thing led to another, and they just wouldn't go away.
They weren't supposed to go away.
I love that they didn't.
I think this is an extraordinary story.
I love it.
I think this speaks to the power of community. And every community has a handful of doers, right? People who see a need for something and just do and just make it happen. I think this is pretty extraordinary because I am not a people person. I would have been like, build the fence tall. But the fact that you invited them in and not only brought them in, but began to find ways to keep them engaged, educate them, and make them safe all at the same time. I just think that this is an untold story, right, that people need to hear. Like when we think about leaders and people think about leadership, they think leadership is about a title. Leadership is about doing exactly what you did, right? Opening yourself up and sharing your natural born talents and gifts, particularly to the children. So you started letting the kids come in. And then it probably got bigger and bigger. More and more kids started coming. Then what did you do?
Well, it was pretty much the same, maybe 6 or 7 kids, literally, for that first year. It didn't get bigger. It just remained consistent.
Oh, I love that.
Those same kids continued to come back. And so as, we were there, I began looking for them. Like every day it would be like, did the kids come?
Aww.
I would start picking up, stuff, thinking about what I would feed them. I started looking for them. And, they would just play come in the backyard. I would do some things with them and then let them play, do some more, let them play. And then they would say, well, one time, one little girl, I remember the first time, she said, oh, I got to go to the bathroom. And I paused. I didn't know what to do because at that point, nobody had ever asked to go to the bathroom. And it's like, my house is the only way to go to the bathroom. And I paused and I was like, go home. And she was just like, okay. And she just turned around, took off, and she went home. And she came back. And I realized at that point, I was like, that's how I got to do it because I can't let these kids in my house. I have to protect my house. I have to protect them. I don't know them. And so that was the first thing that kind of, made me kind of think a little deeper of like, I gotta put a plan in place. And then another time, there were 3 little girls, and they were sisters, and the youngest one who was 5, she was running through my yard, and she was running, and she fell. Oh. And when she fell, she skinned her knee. There was blood. It was like, and so the sisters were, jumping all around, and they were, hysterical, and and at that time, I went and grabbed my first aid kit. And the only way to get the little girl to get calm was to get her sisters calm. And I realized that. So what I did was I guided the sisters to help the younger sister. And as they were helping her and bandaging her up, and I was guiding them through, and I was telling them, like, you're a doctor, you're this, you're a healer, look at this, look at what you're doing. And they were so happy. And I was like, and I had a scale, I had a blood pressure cuff. Don't ask me. That's another story of my life why I was able to go in my garage and start pulling out stuff. So I began to tell them, like, jump on this scale. This is how much you weigh. Write this down. This is how much, And then I gave them my information. I said, now you take this home to your mom and give this to your mom. And this is my name. This is my number. This is my address, because I would want to know as a mom,
Absolutely.
where was my child at? Where did they get hurt and who helped them? You know, and so I did that, and then I started realizing that there was a barrier between, you know, these kids, me, what we were doing, we as parents. If anything happens, I have to be more, I have to figure it out better. So then we began to have Doctor Day. And during Doctor Day is when I began to teach them how to do basic filing skills, how to make sure they know where they live, how they know their phone numbers, they know, you know, just their surroundings and things like that, and how to do height, weight, blood pressure, you know, little things like that. And so it just kind of started coming together. All the while we were like growing the food and everything. And at the end of that season, we had all this food, right? We had all this stuff, with all these herbs. And I said, all right, here's what we'll do. I set up a table in that alley, and I said, we're going to have a little farmer's market.
And I
said, y'all going to sell the food. And I knocked on neighbors' doors. I told them, tell your mom, tell the people you live with, tell them where we at, tell them come over and buy the food. You know, and my neighbors, they came out. They came out, and the people and their parents, and they came out, and they bought the food, and the kids earned some money. And when they earned the money, I said, now we have what it takes to create community. I said, community, you know, consists of 4 pillars. I said, it's an education system. I said, we're here learning, teaching each other. I said, it's the food system. We're eating and we're growing. It's a healing system. Hospital, I said, we're taking care of each other. We're learning how to do these things. And it's a financial system. It is a bank to hold all those things up. And I said, and that's what it takes to create community. I taught myself that in that moment, right? I was just talking to the kids, but I actually realized that in that moment. And I said, y'all, and we got some money. And they held on to the money for a little while. Then I took them to the store. Yeah, we took them to the store anyway. And that was that, right? And they went away. They went away for about a week. And a week later, they showed back up and said, and knocked on my back door. And it was getting cold. It was like, you know, it was going into October. School had started back up. And they said, could we have our program again? And I'll never forget, I was staring at the little program. And I said,
this wasn't no program.
I said, that was just us doing, you know, keeping y'all safe and doing things. And I figured I got my kids, some friends in the, you know, meantime in the neighborhood. And I liked it. And it was great. But I said, it's getting cold. We had shut down the backyard. I said, but come back when it get nice outside and we'll do it again. But during that time, there were a whole lot of things going on with me. I was in this weird transition in my life of what I wanted to do. I had no idea which way to turn. I didn't want to go back into Pittsburgh public schools. I no longer wanted to do what I was doing at the time, which was working for Pittsburgh Merchie and prevention. But all those things were marrying together. But then I was also in a very sad space because I was on my way back to school to get my PhD. I didn't want to take out any more loans. I had finally decided I wasn't going to do that, and I hated that as a Black woman that I was in a position that I didn't know how to get out. I didn't know which way to turn. You know, I was almost on a bridge of hunger. You know, there was so many things that was going on, and I didn't know what to do with myself. I said, why, as a Black woman, am I in this situation? If we're the first of the earth, if we found every single part of this earth, if we were told that I was Black, but God gave us the sun, the rain, the moon, the stars, and the mountains.
Yeah.
Why don't we have it anymore? How did we lose? Why don't we own and control nothing? I was falling into this depression that I had never been in.
Yeah.
I'm falling into these curious moments.
Why.
And so purpose. And so and all this got married together. So during that time, I learned to figure out how to turn that into a program. And that's how Out of the End got started.
Out of the End.
And I started, yes.
So Out of the End is your nonprofit.
It's a nonprofit, yes, because and the name is derived from In the Beginning. Because I couldn't figure out, you know, this spiritual journey I was on, and I was trying to get God to talk to me. Yeah. And I was, you know, because I just wanted to make sure that I was on the right path. And I kept going back to the Bible because that's all I know how to do whenever I'm in, you know, confused, whatever, happy, mad, sad, glad. And I didn't know where to go. And I kept going to Genesis. And I kept saying, I don't want to read this story. God, I know this story. What is it? These are English words. I'm not English. You're going to have to speak to me in a whole nother way. Like you're going to have to, because I didn't know what to do. And I began to break down words. I was going so deep in the word in. I was going so deep in those first 3 words, in the beginning. And what, you know, and what God started just showing me was, you know, what in me, I did a whole lot of research around the word in. and it points to something missing.
Wow.
And I did a whole lot of research around the word "the," and it's just a preposition that supports the word "in." So I had to keep that. And then beginning, and it was so much, to that. And what God just did was flip that out of the "in," and that's how out of the "in" came into.
I love that.
It was like, yeah. So that's how the name for the organization came upon me. Let me stop for another.
No. I love this because this is so purpose finding, right? Yeah. Purpose finding. I know personally that purpose finding can be painful and confusing, right? Because it's what happens when we try to guide the direction instead of just listening and being still enough to listen. But we get anxious and it feels weird and you feel like you're not, like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do and there's more and I should be doing this. That is what I believe, in my opinion, what is happening when we are on the cusp of discovering our purpose.
Yes.
Right? And it gets uncomfortable because we set a path for ourselves that in most cases is the exact opposite of where the purpose is.
And it was uncomfortable for me and everybody around me because I thought I was losing it and so did they.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know. I was communicating what I thought I knew before it was fully revealed to me. Because I kept asking people, like, are you able to imagine everything you see is not here? Are you able to imagine, like, what we see in this world does not exist? And that was weird to people. I remember my one friend was like, I think, she told her, I have best friends, they're twin sisters, and they were, like, talking to each other like they thought that I was losing it, and they were, like, doing an intervention. And I was like, I knew what I was trying to communicate, but I was communicating it without full understanding. And what I was trying to communicate was what I'm being called to do is create what I don't see.
Yeah.
And that was a food system, an education system, a healing system, and hopefully a financial system. I don't know which one, but that didn't come out of nowhere. And so
it was a seed that was planted.
Yes.
No pun intended. It was a seed that was planted. Yes. And I'm so happy that you cultivated it because the community needs what you do. So tell me, Farmer Girl Eb. So that's how I know you. I know you as Farmer Girl Eb. Who started calling you Farmer Girl Eb?
I in my yard of growing things, I'm always, I'm a grower, I'm a tester, and I was just growing things. I was just growing things. And I have a cousin, and she was in my back, and she was like,
You're a farmer.
And that's where it first started. Because I was just like, I'm going to be grower Eb. I'm going to, I was trying to figure it out. And she came in the back. She was like, you're a farmer. And
I love it.
And that right there was like, somebody tells you that. And I was like,
I'm a farmer.
I'm a farmer.
Yes.
And that stuck.
Guess who else thinks you're a farmer?
Who?
Duluth.
Yes.
Let's talk about Duluth. Because listen, I am so proud of you. I'm so proud of you because I might not have remembered when you first started. I saw some photos, right, on social media, but I didn't really know what you were up to. I just thought it was so cute that you had these babies in your backyard teaching them how to grow things. For one, because I know that when kids are hands-on with their food, they're more likely to eat it. And every time I saw these babies in your backyard growing vegetables, I was like, they're going to end up eating more vegetables than they ever ate before. But then I just started seeing so much growth. And it feels like the growth happened in a very short period of time. You were expanding the summer camp. You had a camp. You opened a store. And recently, I saw that you became a spokesperson for Duluth Trading,
Yes.
Duluth Trading Company.
Yeah.
Tell us about how, you're like a brand ambassador for them now.
It's so surreal. Literally, this is all a part of the spiritual journey. I'm telling you, even with those kids that started in my backyard. So when you think about farming, at least in the Black community, really comes with a negative connotation, which, it's like we're the slaves in the story. We're the slaves in the story. And what I noticed that, even when I go around the community, everybody's like, "Oh, you're trying to turn us into a slave? You're trying to," and I'm like, "Man, this is such a rich like skill to have. This is our birthright. This is our and I'm like, we are not the slaves in the story. We're not the slaves, right? And I have always just been determined to not be the slave in the story. And even from them little babies who was coming in my backyard, well, they would come with their freshes on, and I didn't want to send them home in trouble.
Yeah.
I didn't want to, so I would go and put something else on them, like a big shirt, and I would tie it up and say, girl, look at you, you are sharp.
So cute.
You are a farm. Let me put this hat on you. And so, and it was really me protecting them, with their clothes, but I would, make them say, like, this is, and I would, like, have, like, some T-shirts, and it would be dragging on the ground. I'd be like, this is how our ancestors, this is beautiful.
Yes.
We're royalty. And so, during that time with those little babies in my backyard, I said we started our own farming clothing line. And I said, this is our farming clothing line because we're going to produce fresh. I said, we're going to be fresh and so that started way back then, right? I said, we're going to produce fresh. So I started doing little T-shirts that had little catchy phrases on it, pull up in a lemon, I'm a cabbage, I'm a cabbage, crispy, juicy, splashy, this is why I'm hot, and have a whole bunch of peppers on it, So I was trying to just, do little T-shirts with catchy phrases to start a farming clothing line. And so that's always been in the back of my mind. Like, as I want to do all these things, I want to make sure that I bring into our community that we could do this, and we could do this and look good doing it. We don't have to be the slaves on the farm. We're going to be fresh on the farm. We're going to look nice. We're going to do. So that was always in my mindset, right? So fast forward to, but I've always been a farm, just farming in anything, right? Because I'm just out here. I'm just out here. I'm going to get the work done. But I noticed over the years I had started, I would wear like some Uggs all year long. As long as my feet feel good, I am good. I don't care what it like. I'm too old. My feet gotta feel good. But Uggs are not good if they're not the right one to be farming in. I have no business doing. But I was still wearing them because they were comfortable on my feet. But then I started getting calluses on my feet, and I was in pain last year. And my husband, the year before last, my husband said, you need to get you some good boots and stop playing with your feet. And I said, that's what I'm gonna do. So when last year came in, I said, I need you to help me get some good boots, because he always has good boots the way he works. And he said, oh, my job orders our stuff off of Duluth. And I said, well, can you find out, because I want some boots. He said, I could just take you out there. I said, oh, there's a store? He said, yeah. So I said, well, take me out there. So we went out to Duluth to get me some boots. We walked in the store, and I said, wait, hold on.
They have more than boots.
Clothes, this is my, what did they, so I'm like, so, and so he was all like, oh, yeah. He was like, yeah, you probably want to get you one of them, like jumpers. So I said, yeah, I want a jumper. So I get a jumper, one of these. And I wore it maybe like 2 days later, but it was a rainy day. This is just it was a rainy day. And I was running on the farm to go feed my chickens. And I'm like running, feeding the chickens. And when I ran back and got in the car, and when I sat down, I noticed like the water was just kind of rolling off
right off.
And I was like, oh.
It was waterproof.
Yeah. But I was like, oh, and I wasn't wet. And I was like, oh, this thing is amazing. I ain't even wet. I was like, I was soaked. The thing was soaked, but I wasn't. I was like, this is amazing. And when I went back home, and the tags were still on my bed, and it said waterproof, sunproof. And I was like, wow, this thing is awesome. I want another one. So then I started Googling them, or I went on Facebook and I looked up Duluth. And on their Facebook page, they had a campaign called Show Us Your Bibs. And I said, oh, and you just hashtag Show Us Your Bibs. So I said, that's what I'm going to do. So I started hashtagging Show Us Your Bibs. Hey, Duluth, show us your bibs, show us your bibs. So that was that. I didn't think nothing of it. So I was just like, I guess to get on their page. Never thought to went on. Cool. Within probably about 3 weeks, one day I'm sitting in my house just doing some paperwork, and I seen an email come up from, I'm like, is this Duluth? And I imagine I didn't subscribe to them, nothing, so I shouldn't be getting no email, but I seen like something come through from Duluth, and it was like their executive director, and they're like, hey, we see you. Like, we're trying to get in touch with you. And so what they did was they had featured me on their page, but it was on Instagram. The campaign was for Instagram, but I only seen it on Facebook. I'm a Facebook person. Yes. But my Facebook is connected to Instagram, and I'm never over there.
Right.
I was like, so are y'all going to put me on your page? She was like, well, you've been on the page about 6 times.
What?
I was like, oh, so what is that? They was like, well, we want you on the campaign. We hear you. We see you. Dope. So they flew me out, and I did, it's a campaign for them. So right now there's a commercial running. There's a lot going on their website. I do get a nice discount. They just sent me get 6 new ones, all the new ones and stuff. So It's nice. And so it's kind of,
It's so
segue
cool.
into,
That
the
is
farming clothing line.
just amazing, though. I mean,
Yes.
like, listen, this is like just in the few minutes that we've been talking, you went from being in a completely different career path to having an identity crisis, because that's what it was, right? You were in an identity crisis, and in a matter of years, now you are in Duluth Trading Company campaign. Like, because this is what happens once you succumb and surrender to the purpose, it all just starts to happen. It all just starts to happen. I'm sure you didn't think about having a brick and mortar store.
No.
Right? I'm sure you didn't think about having multiple farm locations.
I know.
Right? I'm sure that you didn't know you were going to be an author
That's a dream
of a
come true.
book. Listen,
That's a
I love
dream
because
come
I
true.
love books, and I love children's books because I was an avid reader as a child. Tomato, tomato, how do you grow?
Tomato,
Right?
tomato.
Tomato, tomato.
Yeah.
How do you grow? What made you want to write children's books?
So this particular group of kids that I wrote this book with, it really came organically. Like literally, I've been working with this group of kids for a few years. They have their own private garden out in Wilkinsburg, and every time and all of that book is so dramatic. It's like I always tell people, if you can't do it no justice, only I can read it. Like, it's so dramatic because these are the words of these youth. When we would go into the garden, such things that's like, when you see water on there, no, that's water. Water, water. So it's like, it's super dramatic, and it was about teaching the kids how to remember how to plant a seed and how to get a viable seedling, and what are the things you need to look for. Because a lot of times people will plant a seed and they'll be like, oh, my stuff started growing, and it was growing, and then it just
stopped.
died. And it's like, I don't know what happened. And so teaching them from a young age how to get a viable seedling, this is what it is. It's like, you don't get a viable seedling until you get 4 leaves. So then when you get, so that the book teaches you, it's like, 1, 2,
this is so
3,
cool.
4 leaves. And then it's like, grow leaves, grow
And the kids
leaves.
did you
and
have
every
kids
time
like, they're yelling?
they would be yelling
this is so
when they
cool.
would know that we had a viable seedling, and they know it's time for it to grow when we would go. And it's like, now when I was telling them, like, we got 4 leaves, and they know, like, over the next couple of weeks, it's like we're going out there and we are rooting it on, like, grow leaves, grow. And then when they see the flower,
So
then
cute.
it's like,
Y'all
now
have to
I
look at
know.
Look at this. This is so
You know,
beautiful.
it's
The illustrations
coming.
are amazing.
And it teaches them to know that a yellow flower is what a tomato comes out of. When you're looking at, like a plant, and you don't know what's about to come out of it, but if you start to see the flowers,
You know it's coming.
It's coming, because peppers come from white flower. So you start to learn, different things. And so this book just, it's a way for the youth to be able to know how to get a viable seedling and what's coming once you take care of your plant, and what's coming, what's next.
beautiful.
And so and those are all the kids' words, and
This
those
is
are
just
things
so cool. Look at these
that we
beautiful
would do.
illustrations too. The illustrations are absolutely gorgeous. All the different shades of the babies.
And those are all real people.
I
all
love
real
it.
people, every single one of them, including Emery.
Man.
Emery is adopted, and so we couldn't put his real pictures in the in the
Right.
back. But all of those are my real friends.
I love this.
And the author who drew it, who did it, she was a young girl working at the child care center at the time. She was in college. She had never become an illustrator.
This is amazing.
We partnered with her. Those kids took those tomatoes to the Wilkinsburg Farmers Market, sold the tomatoes. The money that they earned helped pay the author. And she was, like, again, a young girl and in college at the time, finishing up. And this got her an A to finish up her digital technology class in school. And now she's an illustrator. And now she's working on our second book.
That's amazing. And what's the name of the second book?
It's called Hey Pepper Hey.
Hey Pepper Hey.
Yes.
That's so cute. Out of my heart. My heart. I can't take it.
The Dr. Seuss of the ag world.
And guess what? It looks like you're off to a good start.
Thank you.
This is incredible. I'm so proud of you.
I appreciate that.
So what's next for Farmer Girl Ed?
So what's next for Farmer Girl Ebb is that so my brick and mortar store has we didn't really touch much on that.
Tell us about it, because I'm going to talk about some little gifts you brought me. So talk about the store.
So
where is the store?
So the store is located in the West End at 1 Noblestown Road, right down in the West End Village. That's a place that came very organically. It's the same way as, being in Out of the Inn. I took that and began to kind of like sell vegetables out on the street during the pandemic. And Farmer Girl Ebb kind of came into play with that because I had to find a way to profit, a little bit. And so I started another business just from my backyard namesake of Farmer Girl Ebb.
Yes.
And I started the business, which I opened up a brick and mortar fresh food corner store. I'm going into year 4.
Wow.
And it has been a whirlwind of an amazing learning opportunity for me. It pulled me into way more than I thought I would be. I'm now considered a full grocer. I had to turn into a full grocer, being as though I am in a food apartheid area. And in order to meet the needs of the community, I had to be more than a farmer.
Yes.
And that was turning my fresh food corner store into a SNAP accessible place, a WIC accessible place, a farmer's market accessible place. So that has been challenging but obtainable. And now I have been able to, I'm hopefully going to be closing on a new space to build my own store.
Yes.
On hopefully within the next 60 days. So that has been exciting. I never thought that I would be, here. I still don't know how I'm here, but
I do.
A lot of dreams just coming true. Excuse me. And in the store, it's a fresh food corner store. Our biggest focus is fresh food, fresh produce. During the grow season, I do take some of the food from the farm into the store, not all. We also do fresh juicing and smoothies, and we do salads, sandwiches, and soups. We do have some groceries. And then recently, I got into dehydrating. As I am trying to not only increase the products at the store, but also to show the community what can be done.
Yeah.
As we talked about during, our first start off about the climate of the federal government and what's going on. I found myself getting into dehydration so that I can learn how to preserve food a lot more.
Yes.
And being able to transfer those skills into the community to show the community that you can do it too. I don't want us to be so afraid to feel like, we're going to be completely shut out or completely hungry. I want us to get together and tap into our power of what we can do.
I've been thinking about this a lot, so much so I'm not going to announce it today, but Catapult Greater Pittsburgh is working on a fund to be able to support urban growers and urban farmers, just because I believe that this is going to be so important for our communities. Like you said, our communities already are suffering from food apartheid. Many of our communities, for some of you that don't recognize that term, you might hear food desert. It's a little bit worse than a desert, right?
Because the desert is naturally occurring.
Yeah, this is not a natural thing. This has been somewhat intentional, but more so geared by economics. And I am concerned about our food supply. I really am. I'm concerned about food access that we already are struggling with. I think it will get worse. And I think it's very important that we have the skill set to grow our own food. Doesn't mean you have to start a farm. Right? You don't have to start a farm. Some foods you can grow in a pot, but you should be able to at least have the skill set to know how to put something in the ground and watch it grow and harvest it and prepare it for your family. I just think that is a skill that every human being should have. Yep. So I love that you are thinking about ways to educate the community. We're definitely going to be reaching out to you because we do want to host some food growing education for our communities. I just think it's important. But I agree with you. I don't want people to get so afraid that we are fearing ourselves out of action. I think more of instead of fear, I don't want people to be fearful, but I do want people to take action.
Yes.
I love gardening. I'm going to shout out a queen, Watkins Wise here, because a queen came and set up my garden last year. I've been wanting to set up a garden for years. I know how to grow food. My daddy was a big gardener. My grandma was a gardener. So I had the basic skills of gardening, but I don't have time to be out there digging up no yard and plant. I just didn't have time. So she came and started it for me. Mm-hmm. And it was not just the ability to grow food that I could eat and serve my family, but there's a peace that I found. I spent my entire summer in my backyard last year. I didn't want to go anywhere. I was so focused on taking care of these little babies that I was growing in my yard, and we grew a lot of food. This year is going to be better because I learned a lot from last year. But what are some of the basic things that people can do if they don't have this skill set, they don't have a lot of room to grow? What should people do to just get started?
Well, first of all, I'm glad that when you mentioned the queen, it kind of gave me some beautiful inside feelings, because I remember when I first met a queen some years ago. I didn't know her. She reached out to me out the clear blue, and I went and I set up her garden in her backyard, and she has since flourished.
Yes,
and
her garden is
amazing. I know, and her business and everything that she's doing, and to see that now she's taking those skills and transferring those skills and doing that, like, that is amazing. Like That's cool.
That's why
cool for me. That's
it,
cool.
right?
I love it.
Yeah.
But when you think about, some of the, most basic skills, to grow, just like you said, just very basic skills, knowing like soil health, knowing just how to go and get some soil. And, like what type of soil is, good to start seeds and what's not. And sometimes also you might not be the seed starter. So starting seeds is not easy.
Yeah.
That might be leave that the soil sisters.
Yes, I was
like
just
that's
gonna say.
like that is their specialty, because getting seeds to be able to produce what you wanted to do can be a little bit difficult, and it can also be discouraging if you don't do what you wanted to do. So sometimes it's like understanding that there are specialty people out there that can get you
I
to
get my plants from soil.
Yeah, me too. I can start some seeds, but it's not my specialty.
Yeah.
So I know how to go to where the specialty things are. So being able to identify where certain places are where you can start at your capacity is, I think, is one little basic thing. Sometimes you can just go buy a $2 pack of seeds and throw them into the soil and see what they do.
Yeah.
But also if you want to get a little bit more serious and you want to get past that, stage of constant failure, you go and identify that there are some soil sisters out here that can get you past that stage and produce you a viable seedling. So knowing just, the difference between knowing how to do that is basic. And then, just knowing how to, put a seedling in some soil, even if it's just one tomato plant, and knowing how to just water it.
Yes.
Because it's not just, you think you just watering it. No, it's a science to that. Now, you water the soil, not the plant.
Yes.
So certain little things like that. But then also, not having any space is one of the biggest,
It's
issues that
barrier.
it is. And so for me, I'm always saying that's a way to connect to your community, because then you have the opportunity to go out and see, where is the food growing at in my community. If you can't walk out your door to fresh food growing somewhere, you need to do something.
Yes.
You need to do something. That you got a problem. You literally have a problem. You cannot want to live like that. You should have every right. We got the right. You work too hard. You're out here helping all of us. You work too hard not to be able to walk out your house if your car shut down, whatever, and to walk the fresh. If you can't get it off your back porch, there should be a community food access site for you. And so I employ everybody to do that. Like, see where fresh food is growing at in your community. And if it's not on foot, that's when you need to reach out
That's
to
when
us.
you know that's
That's
right.
when, or or maybe partner with us, collaborate with us. That might be your opportunity to start something in your community. We got the right to fresh food.
That's
If we
right.
keep on going in these stores thinking that getting food from Florida is going to decrease the social determinants of our
It will
health,
not.
we're going to continue to get sick. We're going to continue to fight disease. We're going to, because if we're getting lettuce from Florida, the nutritional value is in Florida.
That's right.
Once you harvest something off of a stem, it is within its best nutritional value within the first 24 hours of it coming off the stem.
And y'all know you're not getting. I don't care if they say it's organic. I don't care if it's Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, or Giant Eagle, or even maybe your farmers market. We'll come back to that. But and think about the cost. The cost of fresh produce is going up higher, and it's going to continue to go up. Mark my words. You're right. We need to be able to go right in our backyards or in a neighbor's backyard or in a grower's backyard and get this food as soon as it is plucked.
Yes.
And there is a difference in the taste.
Yes, and that's how you beat diabetes. That's how you beat hypertension. That's how you fight cancer. That's when you're getting the most nutritional value. I'll hear people say all the time they shop in the fresh food department all the time, but their blood pressure's still high. They're still because you don't know where that food really is coming from.
Right. Oh, you don't know what it was sprayed
with. We have no idea. I tell people all the time, if the bugs don't want it, why do you want it?
That's right.
I know you like pretty, but you do realize that we're all in an ecosystem together. The bugs, with the food, it's not hurting it. And so but as a farmer. And I want to be careful because I need a refrigerated truck, right, to be able to preserve food, deliver. I'm trying to up my game, but food grows outside. Tomatoes grow outside. Peppers grow outside. So when we harvest them, the second that I got to go into a refrigerated truck, the processing begins. The processing begins. And so if it's coming again from Florida, Canada, wherever, and on a refrigerated truck 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, the nutritional value is just not there. It's just not there, and so that's why it's important for us to eat local, grow food from your backyard, your neighborhood, or eat local. It's okay. I know. I love when people come into my store and they'll ask me, "Ab, did you grow this?" I'll say, "Y'all never go and Johnny gonna ask them that.
That's
Y'all just
right.
want to ask me that." They'll
the
say, "Ab, did you
standards
grow
are
this
different.
lemon?" I'll say, "Did you ever
Now,
see
you
a
know
lemon
I didn't
tree
grow
in
a lemon
Pittsburgh?"
here.
I'm like, "Did you ever see a lemon tree in Pittsburgh?" But I guess because I'm a farmer, they want to know that I grow, everything. But it's also an educational opportunity for me to keep it real with them. Like, no, I don't have a farm that I can grow all year round. I don't have the infrastructure for that. But this is why during the season, when you see me out here growing and y'all see me getting this food, that's when you should be coming to get it.
That's when you should come
That's when you should come and get it. And then, even if it's a lot, even if you're buying a bunch of tomatoes, pay attention because I'm also teaching you how to process it down. I'm trying to do canning classes.
We need canning classes.
Yes, and the barrier to that is not having a space to be able.
I got you.
Yeah,
I got you.
because that's exactly. I'm like,
this summer we will have a place for you to process food.
That's where I want to be able to, show the community. I'm like, all I need is a space. I can show y'all.
I can't wait. I can't wait. Well, before we go, and this was such a good conversation. I could talk to you forever.
Thank you.
But tell the community how they can support you. How can the community keep what you're doing going? What can they do to support?
Well, first of all, a lot about my business is twofold, and understanding. I do operate two businesses that survive off of one another. Out of the Inn and Farmer Girl Ab are two separate businesses, but it's a social enterprise that they survive off of one another. Out of the Inn is where our farms are held. That's nonprofit. Right now, in our nonprofit, I have these amazing projects that's on land that I do not own. And that is one of my my biggest regrets and upsets, right now. And so it's important for people to just understand that, that's the situation that I'm in. And right now I am in jeopardy of losing one of those spaces. And I just want to bring awareness to, the current farmers and future farmers, to just know that this is a huge barrier. And I'm not exactly sure what's going on. I've heard, nothing about, being able to keep this space.
This is the
And
space
so,
at Manchester?
yes, and this is a space that's strictly for the community. It's not a space that I sell one thing out of it, but it has been a space that has brought community together. And it is designed to continue to keep community together and to connect with so much more. Like Miss Lisa Freeman, we want to grow some crops for her. We want to provide, some jobs in the community. We want to make sure that skill stays in the community. And it's pinned up against affordable housing, which I'm for affordable housing because I come from affordable housing and I needed to stay.
Those two things should never be pinned against each other.
Yes, and being able to have a free food source can help people who are struggling with rent.
Just as important.
So being in support of that, just to kind of, get our local politicians to help us keep our farm. It's going to be really devastating if we lose our farm, but we haven't heard anything, so we just don't know if we can get started even this season. Two things exist at the same time with me. I'm in a really weird space over on the north side with our Manchester farm, but I'm in a really great space on the west end because I'm preparing to buy a space for my new store. And then also the other farm over on the west end, which is under our Out of the End nonprofit, is we got some new infrastructure on it. We're going to be doing some
too.
Yeah, we're going to be doing some a lot of teaching and learning. I'm excited about what's going to be going on there this year. I'm going to be buying that place so that I'm not in the same situation on the north side. And so I'm in this really happy-go-lucky space there. And so I'm supporting that, just, coming over and, not being, I know that I'm not all over the city. I know I'm not here on the east side, but in order for me to get over here, I got to be able
to do well over there.
Yeah,
yes.
And so, just remembering that I'm over there, coming to support, tell your friends, tell your family, pull me to the challenge. I don't want to be mediocre, but I need for my community to support me enough to where I can have that truck and do those deliveries and, keep that store going and make sure that I'm employing people from our community, creating new farmers, just know that I need the support. And what that looks like is just, asking me like you do, and I'll tell you, because at times I need different forms of support. Sometimes it's just a prayer. Sometimes it's just come over to the store. Some days I might have
Sometimes
one customer.
you just need people helping, hands on the boots on the ground, come help on the farm.
And we will be putting out within about a week, and I'll share it on social media and on our website about volunteer days because the grow season is coming up.
Well, listen, Ebony, I am so proud of you. Not just proud of you, but I'm in awe of you because I'm in awe of people who follow their purpose and who listen to God when he's telling them this is what you're supposed to do. Listen, there's a lot of ways to support Ebony and her endeavors, her incredible endeavors. One, you can go to the market and purchase these. These are things that she made these. She grew these and processed. These are organic, homemade spices. You can't find this everywhere. Writing books to educate the babies about how to grow and why these things are important, and going to the farm. I am just sitting here as you were talking. I'm so honored that Catapult Greater Pittsburgh has been a supporter of Ebony and the Soil Sisters and Miss Lisa Freeman. I'm happy that we were able to touch them in any way that supported the work that they're doing, and we will continue to do that. And if you ever need anything, all you have to do is ask.
I appreciate that so much. You give me so much hope, and you have been the person that just met me off the fly and have been literally so helpful. It helps keeping me going. Like you are literally a silent savior.
Listen,
you really are.
We just want to support good work. good
Mm.
people and good work. And there's a lot of good people and good work in this city, y'all. I know, we get down on our city and, we point to the things that are going wrong, but Ebony and her work are one of the things that are going right. And if we want to keep these amazing things in our community, we have to support them. This stuff doesn't just happen. I've been to the farm, I've seen how hard Ebony works, and we have to support it, right? We can't say things don't exist, and then when we get it, not support it. So I'm thankful that you took the time to come and chat with us. This was incredible. I learned so much. I hope you did too. And this is what we want to do here, right? We're in season 3 of this podcast, and we hope that you continue to follow us. If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? You're going to miss these incredible conversations and learn about what's going on in your community. We hope to see you back here for the next episode of the Lily Pod.